What positives can we pull from the Minnesota Wild's 4-1 loss to the Colorado Avalanche over the weekend? What can we pull from the first month of the season? What did we like? What did we not like? We find out that and more today on Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to today's episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, we are free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, Alex Micheletti joins the show as we take a look at the Minnesota Wild's first 8 games of the season, recap the month of October with things we liked, things we didn't. We'll also talk about the Wild's most recent loss to the Colorado Avalanche by a score of 4-1. And we'll look ahead to what is coming up here the rest of the week as well. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked on Wild. You can follow me on Twitter at Seth Topes, veteran Minnesota sports content producer, and joined, as mentioned today, by Alex Micheletti for another Micheletti Monday. Alex, glad to have you back on the show. A little bit of a crazy sports night for the Minnesota Vikings, and so, thankfully we don't have to try to figure out whatever that was, but get a chance to break down just kind of what we've seen from the Wild here so far through the first month of the season. How are things going?
Yeah, I mean, we're already dealing with a bunch of adversity with this team with COVID and injuries to some key players in the lineup, and so you can't be down on this team. They've had some really great performances, and some of the past couple of games, it's been tough with the changes in the lineup. Hopefully get Goligoski back soon, and Greenway wasn't doing much beforehand, but we need him, and hopefully Pitlick and Zuccarello are okay. You just never know with COVID, so
Right.
hope they're doing okay, and we can see them back in the lineup relatively soon.
Well, and the nice thing, as you mentioned, hopefully those guys are able to recover soon. We're not really sure if they are symptomatic or asymptomatic or have symptoms. So hopefully it's not a major COVID situation for them. The Wilds got lucky in that those are the only 2 players that were involved in this round of COVID, as my light is just doing some weird things. It is technically Halloween night when we're recording this, so of course spooky things are happening, but glad it was only the 2 players that were involved. Obviously the other injuries, as you mentioned, with Greenway on IR and Alex Goligoski out for at least the next week or 2. All of that considered, I thought the Wild's effort in the game against the Avalanche was much better. Despite the loss, Colorado is just such a tough team to play, even when they're down, as they have been to start off the season. But I thought the Wild did some really good things in that game, despite losing, and so that was encouraging to see that the effort level was back where it needs to be, even though they did end up taking the loss.
Yeah, it was a complete 180 from the Kraken game. They had so much more life in their game. Ryan Hartman has impressed me so much. He's been he's been one of their best players so far, and Matt Dumba continues to bring it every game, and Jared Spurgeon looked great too. So I really like the effort level from all 4 lines, and that loss was not on Cam Talbot either. I mean, he played great again. That game changed with the Brandon Duheim major call, and somehow even Dean said, "I've been in a couple fights. I've been in fights, and how is that not a fight?" Nathan MacKinnon only gets 2 minutes for roughing, and so and was allowed to go back out there for the major. I mean, they didn't. he didn't score on it, but that still is mind-boggling how that's not considered a fight. Now I know people, they brought up on the broadcast that where was the instigator call, but Duhaime did drop the gloves first, so
Yeah.
yeah, you can't really call that. So yeah, but I really like the effort level. Obviously, Colorado is the top class in the division, and they hung with them. Yeah, they did not make it easy for Darcy Kemper either. They had a lot of quality chances, throughout the game, and so yeah, they're right there. Just think, if they had Zuccarello out there too, I think that would have been a major key. I mean, he was the leading scorer before he was down with COVID. So he was off to an amazing start too. And so, yeah, I'm really happy with the goaltending. That is so key, because if you don't have solid goaltending, especially in this division, you're gonna be, in a major struggle. And so I like where they're at, and hopefully they can get healthy relatively soon and get back on a winning streak here.
Yeah, and we saw some interesting things with the line combinations, and I'm just sifting through Michael Russo's Twitter account to find exactly what they were because you know it. What we saw Kaprizov, Eriksson, Ek, and Foligno, Fiala, Goudreau, Hartman, Duhaime, Sturm, Bugstad. Then we saw on the fourth line, this was interesting. Adam Beckman, Connor Dewar, and Kyle Rao. So putting all of those younger players out there on that fourth line. And despite the fact that the Wild were shorthanded, Victor Rask, again, healthy scratch. I'm at the point where I wonder if he's even going to make it through the season with this Wild team. And it just seems as though he's kind of reached the end of the road with his Wild tenure because if you can't crack the lineup when you've got three rookies or young players playing in the fourth line, that's not a good sign for their confidence in Rask right now.
Yeah, I mean the writing's on the wall for him and Jordan Greenway. I mean, I know he's hurt, but he wasn't doing much, before the injury, and he's getting top 6 minutes on this team. So he's going to really have to figure it out. I mean, at the end of the day, you can have all the hits in the world, but if you aren't producing, especially with where you are in the lineup in the top six, you have to produce. They need they need more help than just the top line and the fourth line contributing. So they're going to have to figure that out. They tried to put Fiala and Kaprizov together too, and that didn't work out. You got Dean's gonna continue to switch up the lines, I think, and yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see, with these young guys if they can run with their opportunities, and then Billy G has to make a move with Rask or Greenway, because these kids proved in the preseason that they can hang with the big boys up here,
Yeah,
and so they think they're ready. And the coaching staff, said when they got sent down that they're ready to go too. So some of these vets, time to put up or shut up.
exactly. Tell you what, let's continue to kind of break down the game and transition into looking at what we like, what we don't like from what we've seen so far. Here from this Wild team. We'll continue our conversation with Alex Micheletti after this here on Locked on Wilds. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all of that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there is no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. That's directv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by Package. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild. And again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. Just as a reminder, we are free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. So make sure to check us out. Simply search Locked On Wild. Joined by Alex Micheletti today, and we continue to break down the Wild's loss to the Avalanche 4-1 to finish the month of October at 5-3. One final point I just wanted to get past you, Alex. Kirill Kaprizov. I thought the effort was better against the Avalanche. He had that just gorgeous pass to set up Hartman for the first goal of the game. And we continue to see good things from Kevin Fiala as well. Are we getting to the point where, especially with Kaprizov, where he's going to break through this? Are we starting to see some signs that that his slow start is getting to be behind him after the first month of the year?
Yeah, the effort is there. Sometimes, maybe it's too much. He's got to just let the game come to him a little bit, and he's gonna score. I mean, this is a guy that's always scored. It's tough. It's tough seeing him because he gets so hard on himself. And
Yeah.
so it's nice to see him making some of those, the playmaking because we're used to seeing him score, and so him setting up his teammates, it's been there. So it's going. The goals are going to come. I think it's something we can't be worried about. I think he's still adjusting to Eric's neck. As the top line center. And so those guys are going to continue to have to gel together. And then whoever is on their line. And getting Zuccarello back whenever is key for Kaprizov, because those guys have so much chemistry together. We saw it last year. Mats is just an amazing playmaker to set up Kirill for goals. And so, like I've said in previous episodes, if Kirill can get a power play goal, I think that would just make the mood for him just so much better. When he scores, it's so much fun watching him celebrate with his teammates, and the energy that he brings to the entire locker room when he scores. I think once he gets one, then they'll start coming in bunches for sure.
Right. And then the final thing in regards to the Avalanche game before we move on, and I already did one final, so we may as well do one more final before we look at how the season has gone so far. I did just want to touch on the special teams for the Wild, because that was another thing that I looked at coming into the game, and the Wilds did get a power play goal to start things off, courtesy of Ryan Hartman. I thought their second power play was great, and this is, I think, a thing that really needs to be mentioned, because people assume, like, they look and the Wild may be 0 for 4 on the power play. And when you're looking at the recap of the game, you're like, geez, this power play, it's not good. But, like, they scored on the one. The second one, they had a ton of great looks and simply came up empty because of some great saves by Darcy Kemper. And, I looked at this like a week or two ago in regards to the penalty kill as well. The penalty kill has looked really good. The penalty kill was good against the Avalanche again. Just really hard to stop a 5-minute power play for the opposing team. And so, yes, you'd like to ideally see, not giving up power play goals in those situations. But at the same time, like, I think power play and penalty kill wise, I think the team has been fine despite the early results maybe suggesting otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, the movement on the power play has been so much better. One guy that I've been clamoring on that I think should be on the top unit would be Matt Dumba. just with his shot. Dumba's looked incredible. I mean, every game. And he's blocking so many shots too.
Right.
Yeah, one of the league leaders in blocks. So I think maybe he deserves a chance at the top unit there. Maybe switch with Spurgeon. In the penalty kill, what can you say? I mean, Colorado's probably got, I'm not basing it just on rankings, but right behind Edmonton, I would think I would say is one of the top power plays in the league with McKinnon, right? Rantanen didn't play, but Landeskog, Makar, I mean, those guys are just incredible on the power play. And so, I mean, they did everything they can, and on a major, you just get gassed. But the rest of the games, yeah, the penalty kills looked fine. A lot of the unsung heroes, the Kulikovs out there blocking shots on the penalty kill, and so yeah, I mean, no problems with that, and as long as the power play, as long as they're getting shots,
Right.
and the movement, it looks so much better than last year. You know, when we have Ryan Suter out there on the second unit and just firing the pucks in the shin pads or just soft wristers at the net, that's just not going to cut it. And in this league, you need two units to be successful, and so it's
Yep.
nice to see the second unit cash in there for sure.
Yeah, and all in all, as we've said, a 5-3 record to start the year without having put a full game together. We've seen flashes, and arguably, like I said, the effort was better against Colorado, and so hopefully that's a step in the right direction. But we will take a little bit of a further look as to some of the things that we've liked, some of the things that we've disliked so far, as we recap the month of October to finish today's episode of Locked On Wild. That is coming up after this. Did you know Built Bar has an amazing lineup of assorted flavors? And Built Bar wants to help you celebrate freedom of choice this fall. You can choose from coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, strawberry orange, cookies and cream, and German chocolate. If you're looking for a recommendation, my favorite has to be raspberry, but if you're not sure where you want to start, get the mixed box and you'll get two each of those flavors. The best part, though, by far about Built Bar is that not only do they taste great, they are amazingly healthy as well. Each Built Bar contains 17 to 18 grams of protein, ranges in calories from 130 to 180, contains only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing tasting, amazingly healthy. What's not to like about Built Bar? So head to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off of your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. And again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. Also, thanks to the listeners for a huge month of October for Locked On Wild, setting all sorts of records. Could not do it without the loyal listeners for tuning in every day. We appreciate you for that. And we can appreciate the Wild starting the season 5-3 with room for improvement. And so we'll just, to finish up today, recap some of the things we've seen from the month of October so far. Alex, who is your MVP for this team through the first 8 games of the season?
For me, it's got to be Cam Talbot. He's kept them in games that maybe they should have lost, and so I thought he was the MVP last season, and he's off to
Yeah,
a really amazing start this season. That save he made on Brock Besser against Vancouver. Are you kidding me? That game could have been so much different if Besser scores there, and so
right.
he's stepped up time and time again, and so it's the goaltender Cam Talbot for me.
Yeah, 5-2 so far this season with a 2.55 goals against average and a 912 save percentage. So definitely off to a great start here this season. I would tend to agree. I would also probably throw consideration to Ryan Hartman. As we talked about, he has been very, very good so far this year with guys off to a little bit of slow starts. what has been, just for this team overall, what has been the thing or one thing that has really impressed you so far with this current roster?
The depth. I mean, we're getting scoring from all different lines, which is amazing. And the fourth line, there's when Dean throws them out there, he doesn't have to worry about the fourth line, and
Right.
they have been bringing the juice. Nick Bukestad has looked great. Looks like he's fully healthy, which is great to see. He's really gaining chemistry with a guy like Nico Sturm, and which is fun to see. And Brandon Duhaime has really taken his opportunity and run with it. He's sticking up for teammates. He's battling. It was nice to see him get get his first goal, even
Yeah.
even with it going off his stick, and that was something else. It's fun to see the depth on this team. Billy G's really putting together a squad, and so it's nice to see everybody contributing out there, and especially with all the adversity that they're fighting through right now, and lack of center depth. There's still guys are producing, and so yeah, that's definitely encouraging. Is the depth on this team?
Yeah, I would agree. I think my nomination for the thing that's been most impressive is the team's ability right off the bat to win close games and to show that they are never truly out of it. Um, Obviously, the Winnipeg game, is going to stick with me for a while, where they were down by 2 in the third period, gave up an empty netter, and still found a way to get that game to overtime and then end up winning it. Like, that is those types of games, especially early in the season, can definitely serve you well. In particular, when you haven't necessarily put a full game together, um, as we've seen basically every game that the Wild have played so far this year. But yeah, I think the comeback ability is probably my most pleasant surprise so far this year, because that'll serve them well later in the year and especially in the playoffs. To where maybe if they get into a situation like they were in against the Golden Knights, they're able to turn that and end up actually winning that series.
Yeah, you mentioned that Winnipeg game. Credit to Marcus Foligno. He always seems, especially at home, always seems to get the crowd fired up. He does the Superman punch against Brendan Dillon and gets everybody just in a frenzy. Yeah, because he loves seeing that, and he scores the big goal, and the X is just going wild, and so no pun intended, but he just always seems to get the guys going, and yeah, it's a credit to his leadership. Having
Yeah,
that A on the sweater, and we're so fortunate to have him on this team, and
right.
it's just I love the leadership he brings to this team.
Um, on the flip side of that, is there any one thing in particular that has been the biggest cause for concern? I think I may know the route that you're going to go here, but anything in particular where you're like, yeah, this is not something that they can weather throughout the entirety of the season, whether it be particular players or just anything in general.
Yeah, I mean, we all know it. We need Fiala and Kaprizov to be scoring.
Yeah,
They are the two game changers on this team. You look at the other players in this division. Their top guys are scoring. The Blues, Tarasenko, Perron, and so other teams in this division. McKinnon. I mean, so Rantanen, all those, all the big names, their top guns are scoring, and so
right.
we need that from Fiala and Kaprizov. And somehow, uh, you know, they need guys like Eriksson Ek and Goudreau, if those two are going to be the centers to help these guys produce,
Yeah,
win faceoffs, help get some pressure in the offensive zone, and help the two the game changers score here, because once Fiala and Kaprizov get going, then this team is can be a nightmare with how well they play defensively.
Yeah, I think that is the clear number one aspect that we would like to see improved is the scoring for both of those guys. The other one that I would mention as well is just the tendency for the slow starts.
Mhm.
Now, that was better against Colorado. It was good against Seattle. But like every now and again, it seems like this team just has one of those Nashville type games where they just are absolutely like lifeless. And so if you can minimize those, and I'm not suggesting that there aren't off nights because, teams have that. I mean, look at Chicago right now. Like they have yet to, I don't know if they still have held a lead at any point in a game so far this year. And so off nights do happen, but you want to try to minimize them. So anytime we see that kind of a game like against Nashville, I'm just like, yikes. So I would say Kaprizov and Fiala getting going is the number one, but the slow starts probably are the second for me. And so, um, yeah, there's a lot that has gone well, while at the same time leaving this Wild team plenty of room to improve. And so through 8 games at 5-3, really can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, I mean they're right there. This division, pretty much a lot of the teams are off to slow starts, and so
Right.
yeah, so they're hanging in there as best they can. I mean, Winnipeg lost to San Jose last night, and they were missing 7 guys due to COVID. They didn't have their head coach either. So I mean that's an inexcusable loss. And Chicago went the entire month of October without a win, and
Unreal.
so yeah, I mean, some of the teams are struggling in this division, and so they can hang right there, and ride the roller coaster right now of the Central Division.
Alex, final one before we call it an episode. Marco Rossi had 2 more assists with Iowa, and it looks as though he's starting to get his hockey legs under him again with the Iowa Wild. Do you think we will potentially, now that we've seen Beckman and Addison get the call, do you think Marco Rossi's call up happens sooner or later with this Wild team, especially with the way that they have kind of treated Victor Rask and his status? Do you think it's more likely we see Rossi within the next month or so, or do you think ultimately his call up comes later?
If they continue to struggle a little bit here with the injuries and COVID, I could see him being up pretty soon here. I mean, I think last year they, before he got COVID, I think they were penciling him in to be a top 6 center, being that
Yep.
second line center, and that way you could move Ryan Hartman down a little bit because I don't really see Ryan Hartman as a top 6 center. He's been off to a great start, but I don't think he's that type of player. He's more of an checking role type of forward,
Yeah.
and second unit power play, just with this shot. But it would be nice to see Marco fulfill that second line center, because I think they drafted him to play in that role eventually. And so if he can continue to produce at Iowa, now that's key, because if he's not putting up the points, then let him to continue to develop a little bit
Yeah.
here. But we've seen guys come up here and take advantage of their opportunity, and so it'd be nice to see Marco because um, he's like a mini Parisi. No one's gonna outwork him on or off the ice. Guy's a freak in the gym, and so physically fit. And so yeah, it would be nice to see him get a couple games up here for sure.
I agree. But that's for Dean Evison and Bill Guerin to decide, and so we'll just keep an eye on him
Yes.
and see how things play out here throughout the next couple of weeks. Wild have coming up tomorrow. They will be taking on the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa is 3-4. to start the season so far. We'll have more of an in-depth look at that game coming up tomorrow on Locked On Wild, but basically after that for the week, the Wild then are right back on the road after they tangle with the Senators as they go Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday. It'll be home against Ottawa, then on Saturday at Pittsburgh, which will be a great game, and then Sunday home against the New York Islanders. So interesting week coming up for the Wild. Hopefully they can pick up a couple of wins and get off to a strong start here in the month of November. But we'll talk about those games all throughout the week as well. Today's episode, that is going to wrap it up. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen. Now I will direct you to Locked On NHL for your second listen here today, recapping all the action throughout the weekend. Also, information and reaction to the Chicago Blackhawks and the fallout that has happened from that situation. So make sure to take a listen to Locked On NHL wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, make sure to follow Locked On Wild everywhere. Just search Locked On Wild. You'll find every platform that exists, and you can listen to us there. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube as well. Make sure to give them all a follow. Make sure to give Alex Micheletti a follow as well. Regular guest with Locked On Wild. His Twitter information is on the screen, but it's at Alex Micheletti. So make sure to give him a follow as well. Have a great rest of your Monday. You can find new episodes of Locked On Wild every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.